Hello everyone, this is Bruno Andrade, Public Relations Coordinator for the Young Learners and Teenagers Special Interest Group for the IATEFL. And I'm here again to have another interview with a young learners specialist. This time I have Dirk Lagerwaard. He's from the Netherlands, but he's based in Spain. And Dirk, how have you been dealing with this whole pandemic thing, especially in Spain, which the situation is very critical?
Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me first and foremost, Bruno. Times are tough here in Spain, especially because we are not allowed to leave our homes, basically, especially for our secondary students. That can be very frustrating sometimes and very difficult to cope with.
Yeah, and have you been, what have you been doing, like in terms of teaching? Are you teaching online? Are you doing asynchronous activities? How is the interaction between you and your students now?
Right, so I teach at a secondary school and I also teach at university, and I've been working with different platforms. I've been working with Zoom and I've been working with Google Meet. With my secondary students, I used Zoom. So I'm happy to share that experience with you.
Nice, nice. Do you have any tips for us?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think you're gonna like them, and I'm sure that there are a lot of things that you and other secondary teachers all over the world will be doing as well. And if not, I hope you can take them on board. Well, as you know, Bruno, and I'm sure you agree with me, nowadays our role as secondary teachers goes way beyond that of teaching a language, right? So what I basically wanted to talk about with you is one tip related to the emotional guidance of our students, and then one tip more related to the aspect of language teaching. My first tip basically would be to create a positive learning environment with your students when you are teaching online. Now that sounds like something difficult because we have classrooms of 30 secondary kids, or maybe 25, around that number. And so a lot of teachers tend to immediately put all their students on mute and not to talk at all. And I think if you really want to create a positive learning environment where students can disconnect from everything that is happening outside, what we should do as teachers is try to interact with our students and recognize them for the unique individuals that they are, and create a space where they can be themselves. And so what I really like to share with you is, as soon as students enter the meeting or the class, the virtual classroom, so to say, is recognize first of all their presence, right? Greet all of them, include their name. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Juan, because I teach in Spain, right? Hi, Juan. Hi, how are you doing? Greet everyone until everybody's there. And once everybody's there, ask how they are doing, if they are enjoying their online lessons, and why not? Because by letting them share their experiences, not only related to the situation, but also the lessons, we can learn from them and adapt our teaching strategies at the same time to their needs in these difficult times. What do you think about it? Do you agree on that
I love it. I always do that. Even when they are late for the class, I greet them, I talk to them.
Yeah.
I even spend some time after the lesson with them, like chatting for any reason. These days, I was teaching a group of 7th graders, and then one of the girls was traveling, and she was in the mountains here in Brazil. And we were like chatting, oh, so is it cold there? How are you enjoying? It's kind of small talk that students feel appreciated, you know?
Definitely. So yeah, that would be my first tip. And there's been research written about it as well. I believe Johnson and Gollenbeck write about it as well in their article in 2016. Be aware of the emotions that you bring to the classroom, and especially in these difficult times, try to be a positive aspect in their daily life. So that will be first, my first tip,
Nice.
Emotional guidance.
Nice. Yeah. And I think this goes hand in hand with what you've been researching for your PhD, right? So Students Agency. How can we relate these two areas in this time of pandemic?
Lovely. I like that question. It's basically all related to first creating an environment where students feel safe, because if you want your students to actually express themselves as the unique individuals that they are, you need to create a space where they feel safe enough to do so. So interaction to create such an environment will be the first step. But if we want to develop their unique ways of being in another language and doing that online, now that sounds as something that can be difficult to achieve. So I've been thinking a lot about what to do because I was not really familiar with this online teaching. And so I created lessons based on an article from Johnson, who sees language teaching all as social practice. So what she basically does is, by means of a writing activity, or no, by means of a listening activity or a reading activity, she basically creates contexts for the students so they can learn how to express themselves in these contexts. Let me explain. So for example, what I'm doing now with all my secondary students, they are all helping their parents out in the kitchen, right? So they are cooking meals for their families and they have to record themselves, or the parents record them while they are cooking, and they have to explain how they are preparing the meal, right? But at the same time, they have to write a recipe, right? So they hand me in a recipe, and they hand me also in a video in which they are actually cooking and explaining what it is that they are doing. But of course, if you want to prepare your students for that, then a listening activity from Jamie Oliver baking a chocolate cake is wonderful, because that way students see that it is not only the imperative that you see in recipes, right? It's, oh, now we are going to do this. I am going to do that. Oh, and this cake is so delicious. This is, you know, so after a listening activity, for example, listening to Jamie Oliver, how he bakes a cake, and analyzing a recipe, putting the recipe in the correct order, for example, you can ask your students, okay, now compare the use of the language from a recipe to the language used when you are actually baking or cooking. Now, what are the differences? And so students figure out that the language used, if they want to be themselves, is really different when they write a recipe or when they express themselves in a video. So that way you cover listening, reading, writing, speaking, and at the same time you develop all the competences and make sure that they express themselves with the language that they know for the unique individuals that they are. But of course you need programs or applications for students to do so. So what I like to do with my students is to record their videos. They can use Viva Video, or as my students call it, Viva Video. Because that's how things go over here in Spain. And so they can easily record whether they have Apple or Android. And I provide the template for them, which they only have to send to me by Google Classroom. Google Classroom is also really good, not only to share materials, but also for students to upload things and
and feedback, instant feedback through the
Exactly.
Google Forms. It's amazing. Well,
Exactly.
Dirk, thank you so much for your amazing ideas and inspiring ideas. I really
My pleasure.
like them. It was
Thank you.
really nice chatting with you. So I'll see you next time.
Bruno, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see you again. And to all the secondary teachers at home, stay strong and try to be as positive as you can, because you are the inspiration of the students right now in their own homes. So go for it. Go for it.
This too shall pass.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.